I gave a massage to an alien girl who had difficulty walking, and what happened next shocked me. The evening had already folded itself into a quiet kind of stillness when the bell over the door rattled. I wasn't expecting anyone. Business at my little massage studio was slow enough that I usually spent more time rearranging towels than touching anyone's back. But then she stepped inside. At first glance, she looked like a tired traveler wrapped in a too heavy cloak. Then she tilted her head, the hood sliding back just enough for me to catch the shape of her ears. Long, elegant. Nothing you'd find at the local coffee shop, unless they were selling Halloween costumes in August. Her steps were unsteady, as though each footfall was a negotiation with gravity. I'd seen people walk in with bad backs, sprains, all sorts of aches, but this was different. She looked like someone who'd been carrying pain for years, each step a secret she hadn't told anyone. She froze when she caught me staring, then said, "Your gravity is digressive." I blinked at her, then tried to recover with humor. "Yeah, Earth's gravity is notorious for being pushy. You should see it on Mondays." She studied me as though deciding whether I was mocking her or speaking the truth. Finally, she hobbled forward, leaning on the counter. Up close, her features were startlingly human. Soft skin with faint silver patterns flickering like constellations under her cheeks. Eyes too wide and too old for her young face. Her ears twitched, impossibly delicate, and I found myself wondering if they picked up more than sound, like radio stations or maybe complaints from neighbors. "I need help," she said plainly. "Walking is inefficient." "Well," I said, glancing at my empty appointment book. "Lucky for you. Inefficient walking is one of my specialties. I've got 3 whole diplomas in fixing gravity-related issues." She squinted. "Diplomas. Paper rectangles humans hang on walls to prove they're not complete frauds." "Do you have them?" "No, but I can draw some if you'd like." Her lips twitched into the smallest possible smile, and just like that, the tension in the room shifted. When I guided her toward the massage table, she moved with the cautious grace of someone who expected the floor to disappear beneath her. Every time she lowered herself, her body trembled, like the gravity here was 5 times heavier for her than for me. When she finally settled, lying face down, she muttered something in a language that vibrated through the room. For a second I swore the lamp flickered. I tried not to show that I'd noticed. "So, any injuries I should know about? Car accidents, cosmic anomalies, wrestling black holes?" "No injuries. My body rejects your gravity. My healers could not repair it." Her voice was muffled by the pillow, heavy with fatigue. "You may attempt." "You say that like I'm about to attempt open-heart surgery with chopsticks," I said, rubbing my palms together. Her ears flicked once. "If it works, I will no longer stumble. If it fails, I will continue to stumble. Outcome is the same." Well, way to make a guy feel important. The first press of my hands onto her shoulders was enough to tell me she was holding onto tension I couldn't even name. Muscles like cables pulled too tight, energy buzzing underneath as though her body was still fighting some invisible war. But the moment I started working, she let out a sound halfway between a sigh and a static hum, and I realized she wasn't just exhausted. She was starved for touch. I tried to stay professional. Really, I did. But then she whispered, "Your fingers produce warmth not generated by machinery." "That's what we humans call body heat," I said, trying not to laugh. "It is inefficient to waste so much warmth." "Oh, trust me. It's only wasted when it's on socks. Everything else is negotiable." Her shoulders shook, and for a heartbeat I thought she was in pain. But no, she was laughing. A soft, musical laugh that startled her as much as it did me. She whispered, almost in disbelief, "I have not laughed in years." I didn't answer, because what do you say to that? Instead, I kept working. Her muscles softened slowly, as if they didn't trust me yet. With every motion, she seemed to sink deeper into the table, her breathing evening out. The silver constellations beneath her skin pulsed faintly, as though responding to each movement of my hands. Halfway through, she lifted her head slightly and asked, "Do all human healers use furniture that does not hover?" "You mean massage tables?" "Yes. Primitive, but effective." I grinned. "You should see our toasters." By the time I finished, She was quiet, lying still, her body trembling less than before. She pushed herself upright, wobbling but not collapsing. For a moment, she stood there in the dim light, staring down at her own legs as if they belonged to someone else. Then, with deliberate care, she took a step. The wobble was still there, but it wasn't as severe. She took another, and another. Her long ears twitched, and her eyes, huge, glimmering, suddenly filled with wetness. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't frowning either. She simply whispered, almost to herself, "Your hands are different. They make the gravity less cruel." I froze, not sure if I should thank her or offer her a coupon. So I went with, "Well, glad I could help. Next session's half off if you bring intergalactic friends." Her tears slipped down anyway, quiet, shimmering like stars as they fell. And in that strange, still moment, I realized two things. One, she wasn't just another client. And two, I had absolutely no idea what kind of story I had just stepped into. She returned 3 days later, exactly at the same time, as if her internal clock had set itself against the hour my shop usually started, to smell faintly of peppermint oil and regret. The bell above the door rang, and there she was again, her cloak draped around her shoulders, her steps a little steadier than before, but still cautious, as though she suspected the floor might suddenly develop a sense of humor and tilt sideways. "You're early," I said, looking up from my notebook. "I calculated," she replied. "Your people dislike lateness. It makes them twitchy." "You're not wrong. We'll burn whole bridges if someone shows up 15 minutes late with no text message." Her head tilted, ears flicking in curiosity. "Bridges burn? Is that common?" "Only metaphorically. Mostly." She nodded slowly, though I wasn't convinced she'd gotten the joke. Still, she lowered herself onto the massage table with less trembling than last time. It was progress. While I prepared my oils and towels, she studied the ceiling as if deciphering some secret code. Finally, she asked, "Why do humans cover walls with rectangular images of their own faces?" I followed her gaze to the framed certificates hanging by the door. "Those are diplomas. Proof I studied. Proof I'm not a fraud. But you told me you could draw them yourself." "Touché." Her lips curved faintly. She was learning sarcasm. I started working on her shoulders again, feeling less like I was kneading muscle and more like coaxing knots out of steel cables. She let out a low hum, almost like static interference, and then said, "Your method is defective. My kind would not think to heal with touch. We use frequency baths, regeneration chambers, light therapy, but not hands. Sometimes the simplest tools work best," I said. "Hands, tea, naps, pizza." "Pizza." I paused. "You haven't had pizza." I attempted. It arrived in a round container, sliced into sharp triangles, covered in melted substances. My body did not trust it. I chuckled. "That's fair. Pizza is basically a delicious dare we give our digestive systems." She laughed again, soft, startled, as though laughter was still a foreign sound to her. Then her tone shifted. "Do you know why my kind cannot heal me? Because our bodies adapt to countless gravities, countless suns. But in adapting, we weaken. Each new planet makes us less our own. Earth's pull bent me too far." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. We wander. We never remain. To stay is weakness." "Sounds like the opposite of humans," I said. "We pick a place, stick around, and then complain about the weather for 30 years. Her eyes closed as my thumbs pressed into the knots beneath her skin. "Your weakness may be your strength. You root yourselves. You bond. My kind fears bonds. They are heavy." I thought about that, but before I could reply, she groaned as I hit a particularly tense spot. "That muscle's tighter than my landlord during rent week," I muttered. Her ears twitched. "Landlord?" "Never mind. A kind of enemy humans are legally required to pay tribute to." Her laugh bubbled up again, shaking her shoulders. "Your words create strange pictures in my mind." "That's probably for the best." By the end of the session, she was sitting upright, her back straighter than before. She tested her legs, taking a few steps across the room. Less wobble this time, though her knees still shook as though uncertain about trusting the ground. When she turned back to me, her expression was unreadable. "You are changing me," she said quietly. "Changing you how?" "My legs hold me longer. My breath is less shallow. But also my mind feels different. There is a warmth that lingers after I leave here. That's called being relaxed. Most humans chase it their whole lives." Her eyes widened slightly. "Relaxed. That is the word. Yep, the holy grail of adulthood. Right up there with affordable rent and free Wi-Fi." She whispered the word again, as if testing it. "Relaxed." Then she pulled her cloak around herself, preparing to leave. At the door she paused. "If I stay too long, my people will come for me. They will not understand." "Understand what?" "That I may want to remain where I am not stumbling." The bell jingled as she stepped out, leaving me alone with the faint echo of her words. I sat there for a long time, staring at the door, realizing this was no ordinary client, no ordinary job. When I finally closed up for the night, I caught myself muttering under my breath, "Great. Out of all the people on this planet, I had to make friends with the one alien allergic to gravity." I didn't know if I should laugh or worry, so I did both. She didn't knock the next time, just appeared inside as if the door had politely decided to open for her. I nearly dropped the mug of coffee in my hands. Do you teleport now?" I asked. She tilted her head. I asked politely. "Your door obliged." "Right, because doors here are very big on manners." She gave the smallest smile. Her ears twitched once as she walked toward the table, steps more confident than ever. Not perfect, but no longer the trembling struggle they once were. She lowered herself without hesitation, and I realized just how much progress she had made. "Your gravity is less hostile today," she said. "Either that or your legs are finally winning the argument." I do not argue. I adapt. That's the same thing, just with better branding. She chuckled, then lay face down on the table. As I started working on her shoulders, I noticed her silver markings were glowing a little brighter than before. "You're lighting up," I said. "It is a biological response. My body releases excess energy when my balance is restored. Like mood rings, but fancy." "Mood rings." I grinned. Jewelry humans wear to pretend their emotions can be measured by color. Mostly just turns blue when you're cold. She hummed thoughtfully. "Your species fears silence. You fill it with explanations, jokes, unnecessary words." "Guilty. Silence is scary. That's when our brains remind us about overdue bills." Her laugh came softer this time, but more natural, as though she was learning how to laugh like breathing, unconsciously, effortlessly. After a while she asked, "Why do you do this work?" "Massage." "Yes. Well, it pays the bills. Barely. And sometimes people leave less stressed than they came in. That feels like a small victory. Though occasionally someone screams when I hit the wrong knot, and that feels less victorious." "And you," I added, "why come back to me when your people have healing machines that probably look like luxury tanning beds?" She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Because their machines fix the body, but they do not care. You care, even while making jokes." I felt my throat tighten in a way I didn't expect. Well, if sarcasm counts as medical care, then I'm practically a galactic surgeon. She shifted slightly on the table. "If you were among my kind, they would name you differently. Something like the one who presses away gravity." "That's catchy. Think I can fit it on a business card." She chuckled, but her laughter faded quickly. "If I continue to grow stronger, my people will come. They will not permit me to linger." "You've mentioned them before," I said. "Why so against staying in one place?" "Our lives are long. Longer than yours. We drift among the stars, harvesting knowledge, avoiding attachments. To bond with a world, with a person, is dangerous. We would lose our purpose." "Sounds lonely." Her silence said more than words. I pressed into her lower back, earning a sharp hiss. "Sorry. That spot's tight." "It is fine," she muttered. "Pain is only information. Besides, if this is the cost of walking without falling, I will pay it." She rose at the end of the session, more stable than before. She walked the length of the room twice, then turned to face me. Your methods, they are dangerous. Dangerous? I'm not even using lasers. Not dangerous to the body. Dangerous to the heart. The words landed heavier than I expected. My instinct was to laugh it off. You say that like I'm some interstellar Casanova. Her expression softened. You joke. But when I stand, I feel more than strength. I feel drawn. Anchored. My kind fears anchors. I rubbed the back of my neck. Well, welcome to Earth. We've got gravity and anchors in bulk. She took a careful step closer, her silver-marked skin faintly aglow, her long ears twitching as though catching sounds I couldn't hear. If I stay, my people will find me. If I leave, I may never feel this again. That's a pretty tough choice, I admitted. Stay and break the rules, or leave and break your heart. She studied me for a long moment. Then, suddenly, her eyes flickered with amusement. Perhaps I could hide. Humans wear many socks. I will disguise myself as a pile of socks. I burst out laughing, and to my surprise, she joined me. For a few minutes, the heaviness dissolved into something absurd and light. Two people, one human and one not, laughing over socks while the universe spun uncaringly outside. When the laughter faded, she whispered, "You make the gravity less cruel." Then she left, the bell above the door jingling softly. And I stood there long after she was gone, realizing she wasn't just healing her body anymore. She was starting to heal something in me too. She didn't arrive alone this time. The first sign was the sound low, vibrating, like the hum of a power station right outside my shop. The second sign was the door shaking in its frame before it swung open, not politely this time, but with the certainty of people who'd never been told no. 3 figures stepped inside, cloaked in metallic fabric that shimmered faintly as if it were alive. Their ears were long like hers, their eyes sharper, colder, and absolutely unimpressed with my decor. She followed behind them, her step steady now, no trace of stumbling. Her gaze found mine instantly, but she didn't speak. One of the strangers, the tallest, looked around the room, then at me. His voice was like a broadcast tuned through too many frequencies. "You are the human who interferes." I raised my hand. Depends what you mean by interfere. If you're talking about healing massages, then yes. If you're talking about stealing Wi-Fi from the cafe next door, also yes. The alien didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. You have altered her condition. She is strong again. She must return with us. She finally stepped forward. I choose to speak for myself. I am not ready. The second figure hissed, ears twitching in agitation. You risk everything. Attachments weigh us down. We are not meant to root. I crossed my arms. You know, you guys really need to work on your motivational speeches. Attachments are bad isn't exactly a slogan that sells well here. We literally made an entire industry out of dating apps. Her lips curved slightly, though she kept her face lowered. The smallest flicker of defiance. The tallest one turned back to her. You know our laws. You wander. You leave. You do not stay. And yet, she said quietly, for the first time, I wish to stay. The room went silent. The hum in the air deepened. I felt like a bug in a meeting of ancient judges. So naturally, my mouth opened before my brain could stop it. Look, I don't want to interrupt your intergalactic family drama, but have you considered maybe letting her do what she wants? Radical concept, I know. 3 pairs of glowing eyes fixed on me. If stairs could incinerate, I'd have been ash on the floor. You misunderstand, the tall one said. It is not about want. It is about survival. We endure because we do not bind ourselves to what can fade. Yeah, well, I shot back. That's kind of the point of binding yourself to something. It fades, and you love it anyway. That's what makes it real. She lifted her head fully now, her eyes meeting mine. There was no hesitation there anymore, no trembling weakness. Only certainty. He is right. Fragility makes it worth holding. The second figure's voice turned sharp. You speak like one of them. Maybe I am more than what I was, she answered. The aliens exchanged glances, silent messages passing between them faster than words. Finally, the tall one spoke again. If you stay, You are no longer of us. You will be exiled. Exiled. The word hung in the room like a blade. Her ears twitched once. Then exile me. I nearly choked. Wait, hold on. Can we at least talk about what exile entails? Because on Earth it usually means unfriending someone on social media, but I'm guessing you mean something a bit harsher. None of them responded. Instead, they turned in unison, their cloaks shimmering brighter for a moment. The hum in the air deepened until my teeth rattled, and then, just like that, they vanished, leaving the faint smell of ozone behind. She stood frozen, staring at the empty air where they had been. I stepped closer carefully. So that went well. Her laugh broke out, shaky but real. You risked mocking them. You could have been destroyed. Yeah, but if I'd stayed quiet, it would have been awkward. And I'd rather be vaporized than sit through unbearable silence. She laughed again, stronger this time, though her eyes shimmered with something else too, something heavier. They will not return. I am no longer theirs. Exiled, I said softly. Exiled, she repeated. Then she took a deep, steadying breath. And yet free. I scratched my head. Well, if you're officially Earth's newest resident, we'll need to sort some things out. Housing, paperwork, definitely pizza orientation classes. Pizza again, she said, rolling the word on her tongue like a strange fruit. You promise this pizza will not betray me? No promises. But if it does, we'll exile it. She smiled at that, the kind of smile that carried both triumph and sadness. Perhaps exile is not always a curse. We stood there in the silence that followed, a silence no longer heavy, but strangely hopeful. She was no longer stumbling, no longer just a client. She was someone who had chosen a different life, chosen me, though neither of us said it out loud. Not yet. Outside, the night carried on, ordinary and indifferent. But in my little massage shop, the air felt different, like gravity itself had shifted just slightly in our favor. The days that followed were quieter, though never ordinary. She came often, no longer leaning on the table for balance, no longer trembling when she stood. Her steps carried strength now, deliberate and certain, but her eyes still carried the weight of choice. Exile wasn't just a word for her. It was an invisible shadow that trailed after her wherever she walked. She spoke of it sometimes. My people will not return. When they exile, it is complete. There are no second chances. I am cut off. And yet, I said, you're still here, breathing, walking, laughing at my terrible jokes. That sounds like more than being cut off. That sounds like being alive. Her ears twitched, and she gave a small smile. Alive and anchored. We tried to anchor her further, though blending in turned out to be more comedy than strategy. She attempted to shop for groceries once and nearly set off the produce scales by absent-mindedly placing her cloak on them. The cashier didn't blink. Apparently, long ears and glowing markings were easier to process than a customer who tried to weigh fabric. She leaned close to me afterward and whispered, "Your species survives on confusion. This explains much." Confusion and caffeine, I corrected. We had dinners together, though she was suspicious of most Earth food. Pizza defeated her twice before she surrendered, declaring, "This triangle bread attempts murder in slow motion." She preferred soup, easy, warm, forgiving. When she tasted it, she closed her eyes like someone memorizing comfort for the first time. Nights, she spoke more openly. She told me of her people's journeys, of suns that burned violet and oceans that shimmered with liquid light. She told me how they drifted endlessly, always learning but never staying, because to stay was to risk caring. And then she admitted something I hadn't expected. I was not just weak, she confessed. I was tired of wandering, of pretending that detachment was strength. When my legs failed me here, I thought it was another punishment. But then you touched what no machine could. You did not only press my body, you pressed something I had buried. I didn't know what to say, so I fell back on humor. You're welcome, I guess. Side effect of my services, accidental emotional breakthroughs. But the truth was, I had changed too. Where once I'd seen my job as just a way to pay rent, now I saw it differently. My hands, my patience, my ridiculous jokes, they mattered. They had shifted the life of someone who had traveled across stars. That realization settled into me like a weight, but it wasn't a burden. It was grounding. One evening, as the city hummed quietly outside, she stood in the middle of my small room and walked from one end to the other. No stumble, no hesitation. She turned, her silver patterns glowing faintly, and said, "I am whole." I grinned. "Good. Means I can finally charge you full price." She laughed, then stepped closer, her voice soft. "You gave me back more than my legs. You gave me a reason to stop moving." For once, I didn't joke. I only nodded, because anything else felt too small. Time passed. She stayed. The sky above us was the same, though I often wondered if she still saw it differently, like a map of places she would never return to. Yet she didn't seem sad. She seemed present, and I found myself becoming more present too. Less worried about what I lacked, more aware of what I had. Sometimes I asked if she missed her people. Her answer was always the same. "I miss what I thought we were, but I do not miss what we chose to become." And sometimes she asked me questions in return. Why do humans laugh when they hurt? Because if we didn't, we'd never stop crying. Why do you cling to each other when you know you will fade? Because fading together is better than standing alone. She would sit with that for a long time, her ears twitching as though catching answers only silence could give. One night, as we stood side by side at the window, she whispered, "Exile was not the end. It was a beginning." I slipped my hands into my pockets, feeling the truth of it echo in me. I wasn't the same either. I had gone from a man drifting through small days to someone tethered, not by duty, but by choice. Her choice and mine. Life didn't turn into an epic saga after that. We argued about groceries, we laughed about socks, we burned toast, and sometimes she glowed too brightly at inconvenient times. But beneath it all was something solid, something neither of us had dared to hold before: belonging. And when she took my hand one evening, long ears tilting toward me, silver constellations alive on her skin, she said the words that tied every loose end into something whole. "You made the gravity less cruel. I will not wander again." For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was just standing on Earth. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The end.